Okay, now we just need to sanitize the envelope. We've got it here. I will spray it a lot.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a little extreme, Jimmy.
You never know where these accountants' hands have been.
Okay.
Now it goes into the basket, and we light it up. All right.
Yeah.
Wait 5 seconds.
5?
And then if you grab the fire extinguisher.
Yes, can I have this? Thank you. Okay. Oh, gosh.
Once all the germs have been burned off.
Okay, here we go.
Perfect.
Got it.
Perfect.
Got it. Okay.
And
wait. Got it.
All right. All right. Sanitized for your protection.
Yeah.
Now this is exciting.
Oh, shoot. Hey.
We are delivering Emmys live to some of the winning nominees in their homes. So they will be getting the trophies in their houses.
Well, this is a perfect metaphor for the LGBTQ community in 2020. Oh, and by the way, we can say it, ABC can't. Schitt's Creek, Schitt's Creek, Schitt's Creek. So many of your stories tonight on Queer News Tonight.
Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight.
Well, thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. We are live. This is an unedited evening LGBTQ news show, so anything can happen. Apparently, just like what happened on the Emmys with Jennifer Aniston and Live Fire. This evening, we are going to bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBTQ community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and this is my co-anchor tonight, David Hopkins.
I don't burn things down.
Let's queer up the news. Tonight we begin with queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in America is diverse, while the LGBTQ community around the world is vast, and we're going to bring you the bullet points of queer news for today, Monday, September 21st, 2020. We begin by queering up entertainment in reporting. The Emmys had everything. Schitt's Creek domination, RuPaul's historic win, and Laverne Cox sounding off. Watch this.
And the Emmy goes to
RuPaul's Drag Race.
Welcome to the main stage of RuPaul's Drag Race. On behalf of VH1, World of Wonder, and our incredible cast and crew, I want to thank the Academy for this great honor. Now, I've always said, every time I bat my false eyelashes, I'm making a political statement. Well, tonight, the only political statement I want to make is this: love.
Last night was a breathtaking storm with a LGBT waltz right into the mainstream. There were fantastic victories and even weirder moments that made the Emmys absolutely must-see television. First, Schitt's Creek, a show that acts as a clapback against homophobia, swept the Emmys and won all of the major comedy categories during television's biggest night, including Outstanding Comedy Series. If that wasn't enough, our good friend RuPaul won yet another Emmy for both show and host, and in his acceptance speech, dedicated the award to the late Chi-Chi DeVayne, who we lost too soon earlier this year. Tyler Perry, honored this year alongside the Perry Foundation, was given the Governor's Award for Outstanding Achievement in Arts and Sciences. He called out to the Black and LGBTQ story makers in his speech, relating a story about his grandmother's quilt and how just because it didn't look like how he thought it should didn't mean it wasn't important, and that we all have a story to tell. And then finally, the amazing and hilarious moment where Laverne Cox went off script, forcing the feed to cut her audio for a few seconds, as she muttered and bitched to herself about people who didn't fucking vote for her when she was nominated. I loved every fucking second of the show.
I generally don't watch the Emmys. I find them the way you find the Video Music Awards, boring, outdated. I generally like to watch the movies that are on it, but the show just, it's too much pomp and circumstance.
The sad thing for me, the only sad thing, I watched every single minute of it. The only sad thing is it was in a year in COVID. It's a shame that this moment for the LGBTQ community didn't take place in the major theater in Hollywood, because it was probably the single biggest LGBT recognition night in our history.
Well, next week, Queer Vote 2020. Survey finding 45% of gay men back Trump is clickbaity, sloppy journalism. Watch this.
The poll's results fall very close to recent national polling showing 50% of voters supporting Biden and 43% supporting Trump. The poll, conducted by the queer men's social app Hornet, actually asked 10,000 of its users worldwide about their preferred presidential candidate. But while 66% of worldwide users supported Biden and 34% supported Trump, the percentages among U.S. men were much closer. Of the 1,200 men living in the United States, 49% said that they do not support Trump at all and 11% said they disagree with him on most issues.
The gay dating app Hornet has released a controversial poll alleging that 45% of gay men are planning to vote for Trump. The results, which have already been publicized and cited on numerous news sources, are nothing more than dangerously inaccurate political clickbait. In statistics and polling, there are time-tested standards for sampling, methodology, accuracy, reliability, and causation. In other words, stay in your lane, Hornet.
That's right. Grindr reports that 95% of the LGBT community are tops.
Oh, yeah.
Wrong polling.
Next week, Queer Up the USA. The notorious RBG was first Supreme Court justice to marry a gay couple after a historic decision. The late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg will be remembered for many things and had a lasting impact, but she also has a special place in the hearts and minds of the LGBTQ community, as she became the first Supreme Court justice in history to officiate a ceremony between two gay men, just weeks after the landmark Supreme Court decision of Obergefell versus Hodges, which enabled all 50 states to recognize such unions. The man she married at the time was Ted Osius, then U.S. ambassador to Vietnam, to his husband, Clayton Bond. The three shared a special relationship, and it is just another indication of what type of loving person Ginsburg was throughout her life.
Next week, Queer Up Religion. Pope Francis reassures parents of LGBTQ children that God loves them as they are. According to an Italian publication, Pope Francis delivered a hopeful words of messages to the families of LGBTQ children. The Pope was quoted as saying, quote, "God loves your children as they are," end quote. These simple words are seemingly contrary to many of the sticking points in Catholic teachings, and one can only hope that the Pope continues to make unprecedented and progressive moves from the Vatican, as it could change a lot of young lives around the world.
We can queer up the world with new research shows LGBTQ homeless youth need LGBTQ shelters to prevent bullying. Many LGBTQ teenagers run away from home to escape disapproving and punishing parents. The decision is never an easy one, and afterwards, many of these LGBTQ teens find themselves facing homelessness. This unfortunately triggers stigma, shame, fear, anxiety, and other mental health problems. According to a research study conducted on behalf of Focus Ireland, one proposed and promising solution is to dedicate more homeless resources as exclusively LGBTQ to better serve this doubly marginalized community. The United States needs to be paying very close attention to research like this, as although this is news from Ireland, the situation here may be even more troubling with such a more spread out homeless problem for LGBTQ youth.
Next, we are going to Queer Up the USA, and reporting Joe Biden reflects on the 9th anniversary of the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. 9 years ago, our country took a big step toward equality by repealing the military's discriminatory and anti-gay Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. Biden's op-ed addressed President Trump's blasé and unpatriotic comments about fallen LGBTQ soldiers. Biden promised that, as president, he would allow and encourage trans people to serve without fear of discrimination. Next, we continue to queer up the USA in reporting a Florida man is sentenced to 2 years in prison for assaulting a gay couple in Miami. A Florida man has been tried and declared guilty of assaulting a gay couple in downtown Miami. The assailant, Quentin Moss, yelled slurs at the couple before and during the attack. His confession was caught on tape by an officer's body cam. Moss has been sentenced to 2 years in prison. It's always appreciated when justice does occur in situations like these, but one day it would be nice if there weren't any stories like these to report on at Queer News Tonight anymore.
We continue to queer up the USA. Trump administration threatens to pull millions in school funding over transgender students. Trump and Education Secretary Betsy DeVos are threatening to withhold nearly $20 million of diversity funding from Connecticut schools that refuse to ban transgender athletes. The hate group that began the lawsuit is suing because trans girls are allowed to compete with cisgender girls, a supposed unfair advantage. 16 states have policies similar to Connecticut's, so the nationwide implications for school inclusion and desegregation are important for our LGBTQ community.
Next, let's queer up the world in reporting Mr. Gay England pushes back against backlash over a trans man competing for the title. The Mr. Gay England beauty pageant will feature its first gay trans finalist, Chayo Gomes. When transphobes began to complain about Gomes' participation, Mr. Gay England officially took to Twitter to shut down the detractors. They stated plainly, "If you are a trans man, you are a man." So tonight, let's catch up next on all of the news surrounding COVID-19 with our segment we call Quarantine Quickies. The first story tonight is our daily reporting of the coronavirus facts, especially important to the LGBTQ community. We first report on coronavirus case numbers. Based on standard acceptance of 7% of population in the LGBTQ community, the world's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 2,198,414, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at a staggering 491,389. We remind you that America continues to be ground zero of the pandemic. The USA is just 4.4% of the world's population, and today America is 22.3% of the world's cases. Next, we report on coronavirus deaths. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 67,725, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 14,298. The USA is 21.1% of all of the world's deaths.
Quarantine Quickies. Atlantis and Vakea among participants in Healthy Sale panel that submitted 74 recommendations to the CDC. Watch this.
If you look at the measures being taken, the tests, which are all understandable, but the tests, the swab tests, essentially everybody on that ship has had a COVID test before the thing sails. These are, and with social distancing, I mean, can you have a good time? Is it worth going to all this testing and trouble for what's a relatively short cruise?
Yeah, first of all, it is a 7-day cruise. As you mentioned, it sailed on September 6th. Costa Deliciosa is our first ship.
Cruise vacations will never be the same. In efforts to ensure passenger safety, the major cruise operators, including LGBTQ heavyweights such as Atlantis and Vakea, have put many changes into place. The new policies include 74 recommendations, such as implementing COVID-19 testing, requiring face covers, and performing temperature checks. The current voluntary no-sail agreement will expire on November 1st.
Well, it's exciting news. Of course, everyone is aware of my previous experience in the cruise industry. Cruises need to come back. Cruises are no different than our entire society broadly. If you follow the protocols, it is a safe experience just the same as in restaurants, in attractions, and anything else that we experience in our society, and especially face coverings. And if we commit to those, along with the extensive testing that will be done, including rapid testing before you get on airplanes and ships that are coming. It is absolutely coming. Cruising can be very safe, and I can't wait for Atlantis and Vakaya to return to the LGBTQ community.
I'm very excited. Now I want to go on a cruise. Two of my issues why I haven't yet is I tend to get claustrophobic and get nervous around crowds. So if I'm trying to get out of the cabin and the deck is packed, I'm going to be freaking out, having anxiety attacks. So now it actually looks like I can go and enjoy myself.
Backhanded kind of experience for cruising. All right, next let's continue in quarantine quickies. Updated CDC guidelines acknowledges coronavirus can spread through the air. The CDC updated its guidance on Friday to state that airborne virus, including COVID-19, are among the most contagious and easily spread. Previously, it was thought that COVID is spread primarily within a 6-foot radius, and that transmission was via respiratory droplets. According to the updated guidance, droplets can remain suspended in the air, so poorly ventilated indoor environments would significantly increase transmission risk. However, today, the CDC removed those guidelines, saying they were posted in error.
Yeah, we had a video for that, but honestly, because of the change that happened this afternoon, the video was already outdated because the CDC is saying they don't know who put those new guidelines up. It was a mistake, when in fact those guidelines are what doctors are telling people to do. But now that the CDC is apparently operating out of Trump's pocket, they don't care about actually helping protect people. It's political.
And interesting in terms of the politics, David, that you just point out, the call to the error was not by an agency or an individual in the United States. It came from the World Health Organization. They pinged the CDC to say, wait, what are you posting here in terms of your guidance? Because we don't have any of the data that you're talking about, and that prompted the CDC to change it. The one thing that I would suggest to LGBT America on Tuesdays, tomorrow, at 7 p.m. on Q News tonight, we will do the 57th version, no, I'm sorry, the 27th version of Q's Q&A on coronavirus in the LGBTQ community. We're very persnickety on the accuracy of information, and we encourage you to tune in. The socially distanced Next up tonight, the socially distanced 2020 Emmys were interesting to say the least. While most people watch for the awardees and the results, I'm kind of there for the eye candy. I've already told you I watched every moment. My thirst at the Emmys can sometimes be undeniable. So tonight, we present a photo essay of 6 of our favorite sexy nude scenes that featured a male Emmy nominee. Watch this.
Tonight on Q News, it's Raining Men. We rank the top 6 nude scenes featuring male Emmy nominees. At number 6, Adam Driver, who stars in this orgasmic scene from Girls. This nominee plays a convincing Dark Lord if you're the sort of guy into choking. At number 5, Brad Pitt, who stars in this scene from Troy. There is no amount of money we would not pay to be the one tied up by Pitt while he gets naked. At number 4, Dylan McDermott. This nominee warms up by the fire in this scene from season 1 of American Horror Story. Hot cross buns. At number 3, Yahya Abdul-Mateen. For fans of Dr. Manhattan, you know that this is the only time, in the history of mankind, when blue balls are a good thing. A very good thing. At number 2, Hugh Jackman. From superhero to circus performer, there is nothing to keep us from watching Jackman on the big screen. Every time we see this scene, we want to take a trip down under. At number 1, Mark Ruffalo. Mark and his partner Matt Bomer look great in this scene. I wanted to say something quippy, but hey, let's just enjoy some gay sex. Now that we're all hot and bothered, we'll wrap up the usual way. If you want more steamy content in your notifications, subscribe, like, follow, and ring the bell.
Tonight we report that the Wilton Manors, South Florida log cabin Republicans have launched a complaint to the executive producer of the Happening Out television network about me. I, according to their president, aired when I spoke about an It's Happening Out host that threw a mic pack in storming off the show. It seems to be very important to note, according to the local president of the LCR, that he was a member of the Washington Log Cabin Republicans, not South Florida. So as to not be fake news, I stand corrected. The Trump-supporting host of It's Happening Out stormed off the live show after being crushed in comparisons of hypocrisy and then threw a mic pack at me, missed, and hit power infinity. We showed it as a live action meme that was seen by tens of thousands of people. And to be clear, he was not a member of the South Florida chapter of LCR, but the Washington chapter. We regret that incorrect information, and we invite the South Florida Log Cabin Republicans to join me whenever they're ready to discuss the news of the day. I'm ready. However, I can't help but wonder what Donald Trump will think when he sees this correction. Vote on November 3rd, 2020. Are you going to ignore what you are seeing? Are you an ostrich or an American? The notorious RBG asked us to grant her one final wish before her death, a fervent desire that her death would not be politicized by selecting a new justice until we put November 3rd behind us. Justice. What an appropriate word today. So for justice, we ask, are you an ostrich or an American? We ask you here. We ask you now. Donald Trump was hired with no experience except as being the greatest flim-flam artist in history, to be our apprentice, to be our people's manager for our great republic, a concept, a dream called America. He has failed. Here's 14 reasons why. Number 14, are you an ostrich? You know, in 1939, there really was a thing called Jews for Hitler. My friend Power Infinity has suggested there's probably roaches for Raid. Your children, your country, the world, the history books will judge your actions on November 3rd. Number 13, lies. Trump has launched a tsunami of lies, more than 20,000 false or misleading statements, and they're growing daily. More than a generation of American presidents all combined. In the next term, it will only get worse. Number 12, the rich are richer, you are not rich. The top 1% have benefited the most under Trump, with 95% of everything made in the last 4 years. You dream of that, but it is a false dream. You will benefit. Number 11, he built the swamp. His promise to drain it just meant he personally was going to institutionalize it for himself. Number 10, Trump versus America. He chooses Trump. At every turn, his actions are designed not for you, not for America, but for his own selfish plans and his own re-election. Number 9, servicemen and women are losers and suckers. Those are his words. He disrespects our most loyal Americans while he used his privilege to escape patriotic service for himself. You're going to ignore that? Number 8, despots of the world unite. A despot is defined as a ruler who holds absolute power and who exercises power in a cruel and oppressive way. Russia, North Korea, Turkey, Brazil, he loves these despots because he is one, and after November 3rd will become an institution of one. Number 7, reality stars should not be on TV. Maybe they should, but definitely not in the White House. The world jokes about his use of words like huge and horrible and his language because he knows how to manipulate us for his own ratings. It is unbecoming of the leader of the free world. Number 6, the world is really flat. Trump rejects science and medicine. It's why he lives in conspiracy theories. COVID-19, climate, so many examples. Hint here, Fox News and Sean Hannity is not an expert source for knowledge for anyone except Donald Trump. Number 5, unconditional loyalty or revenge will eventually turn on you. Trump demands unconditional loyalty or will destroy you in endless tweets and lies. Remember 16 Republican candidates? Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz? Why didn't you learn your lesson? Why hasn't America? Number 4, like his business, he will bankrupt America. So many Trump bankruptcies. So you can't be surprised the trillions he has spent has been more deficit spending in a single term than any president in history. Recession is coming. Number 3, America's leadership in the world has ended. Don't confuse our dollar, our money, for respect. Polls suggest as many as 70% of the people on this planet think the worst of America in an entire generation because of our president. Number 2, you are an ostrich. BLM versus his law and order leads to blacks for Trump? A fake immigration crisis and cages for children leads to Latinos for Trump? Trans ban and false claims of the greatest LGBTQ president in history leads to gays for Trump? Sexual abuse, grabbing a pussy and paying off porn stars leads to women for Trump? Go ahead, bury your head in the sand. Number 1, so now decide what to do with our apprentice. He's had 4 years to apprentice as president. How did he do? What did he do for you? Why are you standing up for him? You can't. At no time in the history of our republic, our democracy, have we had such a terrible moment as this. Therefore, Donald Trump, we must decide what to do on November 3rd. The reality star made this famous phrase. Watch this.
You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired.
With all of the results that we've just talked about, Donald Trump has decided you're fired. Tonight, Happening Out Television Network is broadcasting on our brand new set in partnership with the Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church in Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, Florida. And we always joke we're broadcasting from the gayest place on planet Earth. Our support of their Sunday celebration is the largest LGBTQ religious broadcast in the world, every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We encourage you to tune in. The Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church. Watch this.
Hi, I'm Athena Dion, drag performer known from performing on South Beach and in Mykonos, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
We'd like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living here in Fort Lauderdale, for making this set and this amazing queer church campus possible.
Welcome to week 3 of Queer Money Talks, where every Monday we'll take viewer questions about finance and the economy and ask our experienced professional to weigh in so that you can be more confident with your money.
We are proud to have Queer News Tonight contributor David Treece joining us now. With 30 years of experience, David works as a fee-based investment advisor representative with Cetera Advisors and is an accredited investment fiduciary. He understands financial markets and is highly skilled in financial planning. David has been featured in the Miami Herald, the Sun Sentinel, PBS's nightly business news report, the Washington Post, and on NBC6 in an Emmy award-winning series about his work, and is a member of the LGBTQ community. David, welcome to the show tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And before we begin, let's just broadly dive into the pool. Any financial news this week that we should be aware of and you're paying attention to?
Chaos. There is like chaos in politics, in the economy, in the markets. So yes, there's always a lot happening. These are historic times for sure.
So chaos is just like everything else in the LGBT community for this week in September. I understand that the markets are very volatile. What's going on there?
Well, today we saw what happened with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that this is chaos. And so we've seen a huge sell-off, and just a lot of the politics in the news are creating fear. So that's something that we're really paying attention to, and we're going to have a lot more volatility between now and the election.
You know, before we jump into the first question, viewer question that David has, just briefly explain to the LGBT community how the volatility of the financial markets actually trickles down to all of us. We might not realize the importance to us of what's going on.
Well, a lot of when we say volatility, we're basically talking about the ups and downs of the market, and a lot of it is normal. Obviously, the market doesn't go continuously up or continuously down, but we have sometimes very big swings, and they reflect consumer sentiment, they reflect fear, and of course it can reflect people's willingness to invest and to save, or their unwillingness to do so. So we need to educate ourselves about how the markets work and how money works.
All right, well, let's jump into viewer questions. We're going to begin with David.
Our first viewer question actually continues those lines. A viewer has asked, how could the upcoming Supreme Court fight and November elections affect me financially?
Well, it was super interesting over the weekend after the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The markets tanked, and this has to do with the fight that's coming about replacing her. And rather than doing something through a normal procedure, there's more chaos. And we saw, for example, the market sold off radically, and it was down several percent. Some of the healthcare stocks today were down 10% at the opening. It rebounded a little bit, but that specifically has to do with Obamacare. There is a Supreme Court case coming up on November 10th, so just about a week after the November 3rd elections, and it is possible that if there is a new Supreme Court justice, we could lose the Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare, and millions of people could lose their health insurance. So we sure saw the healthcare stocks get hammered today, which is
broadly, before we move to the next viewer question, David, when we see this kind of volatility and the LGBT community has invested in the stock market, mutual funds, etc., when we see this, is your general advice, without getting into specifics, to just hold fast, or what is broad general advice, like what we've seen over the weekend?
Yeah, that's a great question. People want to know what to do, and it does depend on basically your risk tolerance, your time frames. If you're already in retirement or close to retirement, you might not want this much risk. You might not have to take this much risk. So I would say don't take the risk. Don't be in the market, or be more conservatively invested. We always want you to feel safe and have emergency money, just money in the bank, and don't worry about low interest rates. Now, somebody who is got a long way to go before they retire, and this is long-term money, they may be perfectly fine with the ups and downs. We don't want people to panic unnecessarily.
Okay, all right. Well, we have another viewer question, and an interesting one, something that I and millions of LGBTQ have experienced. The question is, I'll never pay off my student loans in this lifetime. I think they're implying is joking. Why even try to keep on top of payments in the way that student loan works? What should they do?
Well, I know it's discouraging, but there's a lot of hope. So here I can really give a positive answer. I think it's important to try to keep as up to date as possible, because I think at some point there will be legislative relief. And people may think it's never going to happen, but now it is absolutely on the agenda. It is part of, for example, Biden's proposals. And we saw this in the primaries, in the Democratic primaries, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. We're talking about loan forgiveness and $50,000, $10,000, but there's a chance that a lot of this student loan could be wiped out. Also, there are proposals to change the forgiveness rules and to streamline this to make it more accessible. And another big thing, and it's interesting, Joe Biden was one of the people who supported the reforms of the bankruptcy laws, which made it impossible to declare bankruptcy and wipe out all of this the student loan debt. Now he's changed his mind and wants that repealed. So there's a lot of possibility for legislative change. And for people who think maybe cynically that it's not going to happen, I think it's fair to say government actually created this problem, because they created this incentive for banks to give these loans that they otherwise would not do, and for universities basically to take on these students and charge these tuitions. So I think since government broke it, government will eventually fix it. And economically, there's a reason to do so. There's all sorts of research studies that show getting this problem solved will help the economy.
Mm-hmm. And finally, a viewer has asked, or we'll state it rather, I loaned money to a family member and they refused to pay. What should I do now? And
I'm listening to this answer carefully.
I wish I had a better answer. It's like, go back in time and change that choice. But we hear this all the time. And unless you have something in writing, and again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't give legal advice, but unless you have something in writing that you could say as a contract, you probably are out of luck. And the lesson to be learned here is, don't loan money to family or friends unless you're willing to lose it, because maybe it's a choice between the money and the relationship. So I've had people, my clients, ask me that they want to do something like this to help out somebody, and I say it's perfectly fine to do as long as you have that attitude and that it's a reasonable loan, it's something that you could afford to lose. I have also had situations where people want to loan somebody money to help somebody buy a house or a property. Now that is a much larger amount of money, and there are companies that will help you structure an actual private mortgage so you are protected, and if something goes wrong, you could actually file a foreclosure. So that's kind of an extreme thing, but you have to protect yourself.
David, before we end our segment on Queer Money Talks tonight, I want to talk about you broadly in general. It probably is very likely a secret that you're very aware of, that people might be intimidated to reach out to you, to call you, to sit down in your office, to talk about, especially for the LGBTQ community. It's why we put you front and center. You're LGBT, so you completely understand. You're married in LGBT, so you completely understand. How do you encourage our community to overcome that anxiety of meeting a financial planner and discussing their finances the first time? And after all, it's completely natural for us to be secretive and quiet and maybe embarrassed, and we haven't done a very good job, and I'm 40, whatever it might be. How do they take those first steps with a professional planner like yourself?
You've hit all of the points that I want to address to people, because often people don't know what to expect, and it's so intimidating. And so what you should do is, in my opinion, look for a fiduciary. That's somebody who, by regulation, always has your best interest at heart. That's how we're regulated. So no conflicts of interest.
Wait, I want to make sure that you provide further definition there. Fiduciary is a legal or a financial term, as opposed to others that don't have that.
That's exactly correct. For example, here in Florida, you have to have certain securities licenses, a Series 6 and 65 or a Series 7 and 63. 3 and hold yourself out as a fiduciary. So that is a very strict standard. No conflicts of interest, a duty of loyalty, utmost care. So there are other standards of suitability, which means that, well, you could argue that this decision or this advice was justified, but it's a fiduciary standard is much higher. But I think you're asking good questions about the emotions behind doing this. And I put myself in somebody else's shoes coming into our office for the first time. It's like, who is this guy? What are they going to ask? Can I trust them? And there are all sorts of emotional issues. And I like to take all of the decisions for later. We have a fiduciary process, which means we get to know people, we ask questions, we want to know everything about the person, their timeframes, risk tolerance, their family situation, their background, and if they've got certain investments, we like to analyze them and give them feedback on a second appointment. And even on that second appointment, I don't want people making decisions. I want people to process the feedback that we're giving them so that we can, maybe on a third appointment, give them some suggestions. But the whole point of it is that we're there to help people. We're advocates, and that's how you should feel. The biggest compliment I get is when somebody leaves our office and they say, gee, I feel so much better. And I recognize like money fear, money shame, money silence, there's a lot of issues there. So after all these years, I've kind of picked up on some of the issues that we may need to address.
Very interesting and valuable advice, because I'm sure overcoming is the first major step. If I'm going to save $50 a week, as just $50 a week, it has to start with you in terms of overcoming the fear of even opening themselves up to you.
And stay away from strippers.
Right. Okay.
Save that money.
See, that's the example of David's involvement at Queer News Tonight, because rarely in many financial investment offices are they talking about male strippers.
Yeah. Funny enough, when I used to wait tables and had lots of cash on hand, I had a financial planner. It was very important to me, and I know a lot of strippers who do too. So I said it jokingly, but it's actually a very important
America,
role.
this is why Queer Money Talks is important. Yeah. All right, well, that is week 3 of Queer Money Talks. We look forward to having you back next week, as well with more great advice for the LGBTQ community. This is very specific for your interests. If you have questions, write them in. Send us an email, do it on Facebook, wherever you want to get it to us. We'll see it. And thank you for your time tonight, David.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're going to end tonight's broadcast with The Big Finish, and these are short story mentions of LGBTQ news or news with a gay perspective. So here we go. First on Queer News Tonight's The Big Finish. Senator Graham, Dems telling me how to handle a SCOTUS pick is like arsonists advising the fire department.
Yes, well, Lady Jean and her ladybugs need to realize that the Republicans being in control of 2 branches of government is like the fox guarding the hen house. So
that's true. And in my lifetime, I cannot remember such a bold-faced, absolute contradiction, letter for letter, sentence for sentence, on the identical subject and timing of the events of his lies in 2016 and now his lies today over the weekend. He will say anything, tell any quip or joke required to try to deflect from the fact that he is nothing but a liar and a sad little man. Bush lost the election for president for read my lips, and people did. They read them and voted him out of office. I hope the exact same thing happens to Lindsey Graham in November. The Big Finish. He had green eyes. A Florida man vows to paint an alligator that attacked him.
So having grown up in Florida, I've seen a lot of alligators, and I don't know if a witness sketch of one is really going to help.
And it probably is, the witness sketch. One of my favorite topics continues. I have to say, I absolutely love this. I talk about it frequently. I'm a lifetime Floridian. It's called the Freak Show State, Freak Show, Florida. What is it about our breed of natural residents and people who live here who share the same space as the gayest place on planet Earth? I love it. and revile it simultaneously. It brings me never-ending joy and laughter. This idiot is angry because he could only remember the reptilian, our reptilian of Florida, had green eyes. So here's a clue, dude. The Florida Department of Wildlife estimates that there is 1.25 million alligators in Florida, and they've advised me all with green eyes. Good luck, dude. Good luck. The big finish. Happy birthday, world peace. The United Nations turns 75.
I feel like I want to channel Rossaroni from Gay Town and be like, I just want world peace.
And David, if you'll help me, proof of some of the issues with the United Nations. Since the UN was formulated, we've had 140 wars. We've had the greatest pandemic in history in COVID-19. And now the World Health Organization has had its funding cut off. From where? But in the United States. So we have a little technical issue here. Give us one more minute. Our next topic on the big finish, which I don't know what it is. The big finish. Trump says the U.S. will send a man to NARS.
Oh, NARS. I love the movie NARS Attack. If you watched last week, I actually made an image with Trump in a heat ray. So I hope he enjoys it.
Absolutely. Yeah, Donald, please keep talking about Biden's mental sharpness and compliments to my many, many, many Twitter fans. So let's talk about NARS. Number 7, NARS, the misread planet. Number 6, from NARS to penis and beyond. I'm good. Everybody stop. Number 5, finally saw this great movie, The Nartian. Thanks for the recommendation, Trump. Number 4, if you want a campy movie, try NARS Attacks. Number 3, NARS is Trump's famous and favorite Swedish porn star. Number 2, I prefer her sister planet, Mercury. I thought that was funny. And number 1, so apparently Trump first discovered the name of one of 2 planets closest to Earth in a teleprompter. Same kind of problem, by the way, I'm having right now. Many weeks after issuing an order to send humans there. It's one small word for Trump, who's one giant mistake for mankind.
And I have given everyone the benefit of not seeing me on camera as I was groaning over all of the bad puns while Al used my teleprompter.
Exactly, no problem. And the big finish. Trump, I'm inviting everyone to join my seat here tonight. In the big finish, Trump promises, by the way, America, and we say this, I've done this show 138 times, I think. We always say it's live and unedited, and we're proving it to you right now. The big finish, Trump promises to leave forever. Biden says, thank you. Watch this.
If I lose to him, I don't know what I'm going to do. I will never speak to you again. You'll never see me.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
I don't need it, so he can do it.
All right, there has...
well, you know, if only Trump would go away, but I think his ego is far too big. No matter what he does, we're stuck with him. Because if he loses, he's going to whine and whine and whine until he pulls an RBG and dies.
Ooh, I don't think you can say that about the president that's alive.
I didn't say I was going to do it.
There has never been a presidential campaign ad quite like this one in history. Please, God, let's hope he's telling the truth. Best advice to you, LGBT America, back away quietly and don't disturb the rabid dog. The big finish. Rami Youssef's Emmy loss tweet deserves its own award. Watch this. hazard suit, waving goodbye with an award in real time after an actor loses, or a teleprompter at Queer News Tonight. We get that guy to be at Trump's house during the election, and everything will be perfect. So that is today's news on the LGBT community live broadcast of the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show. Remember, if it's important to the LGBTQ community, it's important to Queer News Tonight, but you must help us. Click subscribe in YouTube and share this news. I can't wait to see the memes that are going to be created out of this last 5 minutes. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines, and this is the only source of live LGBTQ news in the world. Your community needs your support. And remember, you're not alone. We will get through this crisis. We are here with you, and this is Queer News Tonight. So thank you for joining us. I'm Al Ferguson, and on behalf of myself and David Hopkins, we will see you daily and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Good night, America.
We get to start and end with a trash fire.